What if every cosmic mystery, from the moon's inexplicable acceleration to the perfect swirling arms of spiral galaxies, isn't solved by dark matter or expanding space, but by an invisible substance that's constantly creating and recycling our entire universe? What if space wasn't this inert vacuum, but actually alive, flowing, shaping everything around us, from the tiniest particle right up to the biggest galaxies?
That's quite a thought to kick things off with, isn't it? It really makes you question those foundational assumptions we usually just take for granted.
Right.
Pushes us beyond the standard cosmic mechanics into something, well, something that feels much more dynamic, almost organic, you could say.
Absolutely. Welcome, everyone, to The Deep Dive. This is where we take a stack of your sources, dig in, and pull out the most, well, frankly, astonishing nuggets of knowledge. We're here to help you get truly well-informed, maybe share a few surprising facts, and hopefully have enough fun along the way to keep you hooked.
And today, we're definitely diving deep.
Oh, yeah. Today, we're embarking on a really awe-inspiring journey. We're looking into a truly revolutionary idea, maybe one that's been unjustly overlooked from the world of physics and cosmology. Seriously, prepare for a potential shift in how you see the universe.
It's definitely a journey into territory that, modern science often dismisses. But as we're going to explore, it offers these incredibly coherent explanations for some really big cosmic puzzles.
Okay, so here's our mission for today. We are diving headfirst into Sergej Burago's pretty provocative book, Secrets of the Interstellar Aether, which came out back in 1997.
Right.
And this isn't just like a collection of essays. It's an entire alternative framework for understanding the cosmos.
Yeah.
It really challenges mainstream ideas by saying, look, the universe isn't a vacuum. It's permeated by this constantly flowing dynamic substance, the ether.
Yeah, it's a fundamental rebuilding from the ground up.
We're going to explore all the main concepts, from the really big picture stuff down to the nitty-gritty details. We want to guide you through this narrative that, honestly, it just might change how you perceive reality. It's a total reimagining.
And Burago really does pull on this one single thread, the ether, and uses it to weave together and re-explain almost every major concept in physics and astronomy. We're talking the nature of light, gravity, how galaxies are structured, the works.
It's ambitious, to say the least. And hey, before we plunge headfirst into this cosmic ocean of ideas, if you're finding this deep dive as fascinating as we think it is, please take just a second to like this video, hit subscribe on our channel, maybe even join our memberships for some extra exclusive content.
Your support really does help us keep digging up these incredible insights for you.
It absolutely does. Okay, enough preamble. Let's start reshaping our cosmic view. Let's unpack this. This core idea, the one that sort of sets the stage for everything else in the book. Humanity has grappled for, well, forever, right? With these huge questions. What is the universe actually made of? Where did it all come from?
The big ones.
Exactly. And for centuries, this idea of an ether kind of filled that gap, that supposed void of space, the medium for light, for forces.
It made intuitive sense for a long time.
Right. Then, modern physics comes along, Einstein, Michelson, Morley, and the ether seemingly vanishes. It's deemed unnecessary. But Burago's book, it boldly brings it right back. Like, really, but with a vengeance.
Yeah, it's not just a historical footnote for him.
No. It feels like finding this secret, forgotten blueprint for how the cosmos works, maybe tucked away in some old physics archive, but one that, when you look at it, is surprisingly coherent.
And what's truly foundational here, I think, is that Burago isn't just being nostalgic for old theories. He's not just playing philosophical games. He's proposing a fully developed mathematical physical theory.
Okay.
He argues the universe is not an empty vacuum. It's continuously filled by this ether gas. And he calls it the primordial substance in Russian, uvi.
Primordial substance.
Yeah, and it's not just some vague, wispy, ethereal concept. This is a complete foundational shift right from the start, how we even conceptualize reality.
So forget empty space.
Yeah.
Think cosmic goo, like the absolute base ingredient for everything.
That's a pretty good way to put it. It's not just the medium light travels through. It's the very essence, the fundamental underlying substance of the entire cosmos. It gives existence its existence. It's the bedrock of all reality.
Okay, so if this ether is this primordial substance, this everything goo, what happens when it interacts with things, like a star atom, or even just a tiny subatomic particle? Because this is where the theory really starts to get going, and it gets really interesting.
Right, this is the mechanism.
The book claims that all material bodies from huge stars and planets down to the most fleeting little elementary particles. They were continuously absorbing this ether.
Constantly taking it in.
Yeah. And here's the kicker, the really mind-bending part. This absorbed ether doesn't just, pass through them or get stored somewhere. It actually transforms into matter.
It becomes part of the object itself.
Exactly. It's like the universe has this giant continuous 3D printer running, powered by this invisible substance, and it's constantly building and rebuilding everything we see.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's not about matter just popping into existence from nothing, right? That would violate conservation laws we hold pretty dear.
Good point.
Instead, Burago describes this perpetual cosmic cycle. Think of it like a grand universal metabolism. Material bodies are constantly consuming ether, transforming it into their own mass. And this is crucial in really energetic, cataclysmic events like stars exploding, supernovas, or these massive bursts from radio galaxies that matter can partially or even completely break down back into its constituent ether atoms. It's a cosmic recycling program on an absolutely unimaginable scale. It means the universe isn't static. It's not just depleting its resources. It's constantly renewing itself.
So, okay, let me try this analogy. Imagine a cosmic sponge, right? Soaking up this invisible energy, this ether. And that energy literally solidifies into everything we see, the chair you're sitting on, me, you, the star.
Oh, yeah, the very substance of things.
And then when a star goes boom, it's like the sponge gets wrung out and some of that water, that ether, goes back into the cosmic ocean, ready to be soaked up again by new stuff forming.
That's a great way to visualize it. This constant flow and transformation is what makes the universe tick. It's this dynamic, ever-changing dance of creation and, recreation.
Wow. Okay, so this isn't just happening, it's the fundamental process.
Precisely. And the book goes further. It says the internal energy of this ether gas itself is essentially the energy of space, or what we might think of as vacuum energy. So it provides this boundless cosmic energy source. It's not an empty void. It's an inexhaustible well of cosmic power, constantly fueling the creation and transformation of everything.
An inexhaustible well.
It's a very elegant solution, really, to where all the energy and matter in the universe fundamentally comes from. It suggests the universe isn't just winding down from some initial Big Bang event, but is perpetually energized from within, by the ether itself.
A boundless cosmic energy source. I mean, forget warp drives. That sounds like the ultimate power source.
Right.
The implications just for energy are staggering.
Right.
And the book, even right in the intro, it claims this theory offers solutions to a significant number of enigmatic problems of astronomy and physics. And it says it's accessible even if you're not a specialist.
Which is helpful because some of these concepts really do stretch the brain.
Tell me about it. My brain already feels like that cosmic sponge you mentioned, just absolutely soaked, and we're just getting started. Okay, stick with us, because next we're going to tackle something as fundamental as gravity and mass, and you'll see how the ether completely flips our understanding of them right on their heads. Okay, so if everything from the tiniest speck to the biggest star is constantly soaking up this ether and turning it into matter, what does that actually mean for something like mass?
Yeah, good question.
Because we usually think of mass as just mass. It's just this inherent property of an object, right? A measure of how much stuff is in it. But this sounds way more dynamic, more fluid.
It is, yeah. Burago proposes that the mass of a body isn't some fixed, unchanging, inherent thing. Instead, he defines it as a quantitative measure of the ether. It is continuously absorbed over its existence.
Okay, so mass equals absorbed ether.
Pretty much, yeah. The growth of a body's mass, or even its very existence as mass, is a direct result of this continuous inflow of the ether gas. So when a star gets more massive, it's not just collecting more traditional stuff like gas and dust. It's actively, perpetually soaking up more ether from its surroundings.
Like that snowball analogy you sometimes hear. Rolling down a hill, getting bigger.
Sort of, but maybe even more fundamental. It's like the snowball's mass is the snow it's accumulated from the environment it's moving through. So mass isn't just a measure of stuff. It's a measure of soaked up ether. And this view, it implies this really deep, intricate connection between that ether absorption and something really fundamental, inertia.
Resistance to motion.
Exactly, that resistance to changes in motion. And also the very movement of a body through this universal ether field. Why do things resist being pushed? In this view, it's because they are essentially pushing against the incoming flow of ether, the very flow that's giving them their mass in the first place.
Whoa, wait, so inertia isn't just some abstract property, it's the object interacting with the incoming ether flow.
That's the idea. It provides a tangible physical explanation for inertia. It's all beautifully interconnected. Mass comes from ether. Inertia comes from interacting with the ether flow that creates the mass.
Okay, that's a big shift. And it completely flips our understanding of gravity then, doesn't it?
No, absolutely.
I mean, Newton saw it as this invisible pull acting across space, right? Apples fall, planets orbit. Then Einstein comes along, talks about curved space-time, like a bowling ball on a trampoline making a dip that marbles roll into.
The geometric view.
Yeah. But Burago presents something else entirely. Something that feels much more, I don't know, physical, more mechanical, almost intuitive.
Well, what's truly fascinating here is that Burago reinterprets gravity completely differently. It's not an attractive force acting at a distance. It's not a warp in space-time.
Okay, so what is it?
He describes it as a force effect caused by the flow of ether onto a material body. It's essentially a push rather than a pull.
A push. How does that work?
Imagine it like this. Ether is constantly flowing towards and being absorbed by massive bodies, like the Earth or the Sun. This inflow creates a kind of pressure, a subtle but constant current in the ether. And this current pushes other nearby objects towards the massive body.
Okay.
So the stronger the ether flow towards a big object because it's absorbing more ether, the stronger the gravitational push effect we observe on things around it.
So it's like, imagine a drain in a giant cosmic bathtub. The water flowing towards the drain creates a current, and things floating nearby get pulled towards the drain by that current.
That's a fantastic analogy, yes. The bigger the drain, the more massive the object, absorbing more ether, the stronger the flow, and the stronger the push on surrounding objects.
That is incredibly vivid. Wow. It makes gravity feel less mysterious somehow.
And the book draws this really powerful parallel here to something called D'Alembert's paradox. It's this curious puzzle from classical fluid dynamics.
I think I've never heard of it.
Well, the paradox basically says that in an ideal fluid one with absolutely no friction or viscosity, a body moving through it shouldn't experience any drag or resistance at all.
Which sounds wrong, because things definitely experience drag in water or air.
Exactly. It's a theoretical puzzle because we obviously see drag in the real world, but Burago kind of flips this paradox. He argues that this frictionless state is precisely what doesn't happen in the ether, not because the ether itself has friction like water, but because material bodies continuously absorb it.
The absorption is key again.
Yes. So that absorption itself creates this constant resistance or push against the body, which we then perceive and measure as the force of gravity.
So it's a very clever way to explain both the apparent pull of gravity and why objects might move through this medium without slowing down in other ways, because the interaction is the force.
Precisely. He argues the true physical reason for gravity lies in this continuous ether absorption. It's the universe itself, the flowing ether, creating the force we feel, not some mysterious action at a distance.
So the reason I'm stuck to my chair right now isn't because the Earth is magically pulling me down, but because this cosmic ether is constantly flowing into the Earth. And that flow is pushing me down onto it, like I'm caught in this incredibly gentle cosmic waterfall.
That's the essence of his explanation, yes.
Mind blown. Again, this is a total paradigm shift. But, okay, now we absolutely have to address the elephant in the cosmic room.
The Michelson-Morley experiment.
Exactly. One of the biggest historical arguments against the whole idea of ether was that famous Michelson-Morley experiment. They tried to detect the ether wind, the effect of Earth moving through this supposed stationary ether, and they found nothing.
Right. Null result.
For many physicists, that was basically the nail in the coffin for the ether concept. It seemed to prove it didn't exist. So how does Burago's theory handle this major historical hurdle?
Yeah, this raises a really important question, and it's where Burago offers, I think, an ingenious and pretty elegant explanation. He doesn't dispute the results of Michelson-Morley. He disputes the interpretation. Burago argues that the Earth isn't just plowing through a static ether, like a ship sailing through still water. Instead, the Earth entrains the ether. It basically drags the nearby ether along with it as it moves through space.
Entrains, like carries it along?
Exactly. So an observer on Earth wouldn't detect a relative ether wind because they are moving with this entrained bubble of ether. Imagine being inside a car with the windows up. You don't feel the wind outside, right? You're moving with the air inside the car.
Ah, okay. So the experiment worked perfectly. It just showed we're moving with the local ether, not through a stationary background.
That's Burago's interpretation. So the lack of detection doesn't disprove the ether at all. Instead, he argues, it actually confirms this phenomenon of ether entrainment. It's a subtle but really profound difference in how you look at that famous null result.
So the ether wind wasn't missing. It was just hitching a ride with us the whole time, like a silent cosmic co-pilot. That is genuinely clever. It breathes new life into the concept. But, okay, playing devil's advocate for a second. For listeners who've always heard ether was disproven, how robust is this entrainment explanation? Are there other experiments or potential tests that could back this up or maybe challenge it within Burago's framework?
Well, Burago argues that the consistency of his entire theory across many different phenomena actually strengthens the entrainment idea. It's not just an isolated fix for Michelson-Morley.
Okay.
For instance, he points to another classic experiment, the Fizeau experiment. This one measured the speed of light in moving water. Historically, its results were seen as a bit ambiguous regarding ether.
Right, I remember that one vaguely.
Burago re-explains it. He suggests Fizeau's findings are perfectly consistent with the idea that the moving water partially entrains the ether within it. This partial entrainment influences light speed in a predictable way, matching the experimental results.
So it's not about disproving ether. It's about understanding how it behaves, how it interacts with moving matter, how much it gets dragged along.
Exactly. It's a complete reevaluation of these classic 19th century experiments, but viewed through this lens of a dynamic, potentially entrained ether. The results fit, he argues, if you understand the ether's properties correctly.
Okay, this whole idea of ether entrainment feels absolutely crucial then. And it clearly doesn't just explain away old experimental results. It must have huge implications for how light actually travels across the vast distances of the universe.
Oh, absolutely.
Which we're going to dive into next. Seriously, you won't want to miss how this potentially redefines cosmic distances and, quite literally, rewrites the history of the universe as we think we understand it. It makes you rethink everything about photons and the speed of light. Okay, light. When we usually think about light, especially since Einstein and quantum mechanics, we picture photons, right? These tiny little packets of energy. Or maybe electromagnetic waves rippling through the vacuum of space, carrying information at the absolute cosmic speed limit.
The standard picture, yeah. Particle-wave duality in a vacuum.
But Burago, he takes us back to a completely different picture, one that feels almost more tangible, more mechanical. We're talking waves again, but maybe not the kind you'd immediately think of.
Well, to elaborate on that, the book proposes light isn't a particle in that quantum sense, nor is it just an abstract wave in empty space. Instead, he argues it's a shock wave propagating through the ether.
A shock wave?
Yeah, specifically a light impact wave. And he suggests it's generated by electrons moving at relativistic speeds near the speed of light, effectively hitting the ether and creating this disturbance.
Wow.
It's a very physical, very mechanical interpretation, almost like sound waves moving through air, but happening on this fundamental cosmic level within the ether itself.
So like dropping a pebble in a pond creates ripples, but the pond is the entire universe filled with ether, and the ripple is light.
That's a good way to think about it, yeah. Light, in this view, absolutely requires a physical medium, the ether, to propagate through, just like sound needs air or water.
A shock wave. Like a cosmic sonic boom.
Yeah.
Is that basically what light is in this model?
Yeah.
That's genuinely wild. It gives light this physical presence, this substance, beyond just being energy packets.
Precisely. And Burago points to Cherenkov radiation as key evidence supporting this idea.
Cherenkov radiation.
Yeah.
That's the blue glow you see sometimes in nuclear reactors, right?
Exactly. It's this fascinating phenomenon where charged particles travel faster than the speed of light in a specific medium, like water, not in a vacuum, and they emit this characteristic light.
Okay.
Burago explains this as a direct, observable consequence of these light shock waves. The fast particle is essentially outrunning the light waves it's generating in the medium, creating this wake, this boom. It's very much like a cosmic sonic boom caused by particles interacting with the ether medium.
So Cherenkov radiation isn't some weird exception. It's actually showing us the fundamental nature of light as a shock wave.
That's his argument. And the book even includes visuals figures 12 through 15 in section 15 depicting these shock waves. They look remarkably similar to the pressure cones you see from a supersonic jet or the V-shaped wake behind a boat moving through water.
Okay, seeing visuals helps.
Yeah, he's not just keeping it theoretical, he's grounding it in observable phenomena, arguing the ether provides a consistent physical explanation for something we can actually measure and see. Light isn't just an abstract field, it has this tangible presence in the cosmos.
That makes so much more visual sense, like a boat's wake but for light. Okay, so if light is this physical shock wave, how does the theory handle something like polarization? The fact that light waves oscillate in a specific direction. That seemed like a very specific, subtle property for a general shock wave to have.
That's a really sharp question. The ether theory suggests polarization is due to transverse oscillations within the ether itself.
Transverse oscillations, meaning sideways.
Exactly. Think about shaking a long rope. You can shake it up and down, creating vertical waves, or you can shake it side to side, creating horizontal waves. Those are transverse oscillations. The movement is perpendicular to the direction the wave travels.
Okay, I get that.
So light, being this disturbance or perturbation in the ether, can have these specific orientations of oscillation depending on how it was created or what it passes through. The ether provides the physical medium and the direct mechanical mechanism for this property.
So unlike theories describing light in a vacuum, where polarization is more of an abstract property of the electromagnetic field.
Right. Here, it's a direct consequence of the ether having physical properties, like the ability to vibrate or oscillate in different directions, different planes.
Okay, so ether gives a physical mechanism for polarization too, grounding it in something tangible. But then there's the really big one, the cornerstone of modern physics, Einstein's second postulate, the constancy of the speed of light in a vacuum.
The speed limit of the universe, C.
Right. How does Burago's ether theory, which posits this universal medium, approach that? Because if light is traveling through a medium, you'd instinctively think its speed should change depending on how you're moving relative to that medium, wouldn't you? That was the whole point of the Michelson-Morley experiment, trying to detect that difference.
You absolutely would expect that, yes, in a purely classical sense. However, the book asserts that the speed of light is indeed constant, but with a crucial clarification. It's constant specifically relative to the stationary ether, or regions of calm, undisturbed ether.
Relative to the ether.
Yes. And he argues that experiments like Fizeau's and Michelson-Morley, when you interpret them correctly through this lens of ether entrainment that we talked about.
Where the Earth drags the ether along.
Exactly. When you factor that in, those experiments actually support this idea. The apparent constancy of light speed for observers in motion, like us on Earth, is explained because we are moving with our local patch of entrained ether.
So the speed of light is constant, but it's constant relative to its true background, which is the ether. And because we're surfing along with the local ether, we don't perceive a variation in light speed from sources moving relative to us within our local frame of reference. It's a subtle distinction, but absolutely critical to his model. The constancy isn't a property of empty space. It's a property relative to the ether medium itself.
Okay. It's constant relative to the medium, and we happen to be carried by the medium near us. Wow. This reinterpretation of light speed. This is going to have huge consequences for how we think about the expansion of the universe, right? And what the light from distant galaxies is actually telling us.
Absolute massive consequences. It means that light arriving from billions of light years away might not be telling us the story we thought it was about the universe's history. Okay, you definitely need to stick around because the next segment is going to challenge your whole understanding of cosmic history itself. It's like we might need to rewrite the universe's autobiography from a completely different perspective. Cosmic phenomena through the Aether lens. Let's talk stars. Those massive fusion furnaces dotted across the sky, our own sun, for example. For decades, pretty much since Einstein gave us EMC², we've been taught that nuclear fusion is the engine, right? Hydrogen smashing into helium deep in the core, releasing enormous energy.
The standard stellar model, yeah.
Mass converting to energy.
But Burago comes along and offers a radically different explanation for how stars shine. It's not about fusion, primarily.
Well, what's really fascinating here is that Burago proposes stars, including our sun, generate their enormous energy not mainly through fusion, but by continuously absorbing ether.
It's the central mechanism. And this isn't just a tiny trickle. He pictures it as a colossal, unending intake. This absorbed ether directly contributes to the star's mass, as we discussed.
Right. Mass is absorbed ether.
And then it's somehow transformed into the energy the star radiates, light, heat, everything else. It's literally sucking in the cosmic fuel, the ether, to keep shining.
So forget a nuclear furnace. Imagine the sun as this giant cosmic vacuum cleaner, just constantly hoovering up the invisible ether all around it. And that process is its main power source.
That's the core idea. It's a completely different energy economy for stars and potentially for the whole universe.
That is such a vivid and almost alien image. Stars eating the ether to stay bright, Does the book put any numbers on this? Like, how much ether are we talking about? Is it measurable?
It absolutely does try to quantify it, and the numbers involved are pretty staggering. The book provides specific formulas like Formula 28, attempting to calculate how stars accumulate this energy through ether absorption. He even calculates for our sun, based on this absorption model, that it has accumulated gravitational potential energy equivalent to something like 4.71 times 10 to the 17th ergs per second, averaged over its roughly 15 billion year history in his model.
4.71 by 1 10 17 ergs per second. How does that compare to the sun's actual output from fusion?
Well, the sun's observed luminosity, what we measure, which mainstream science attributes mostly to fusion, is about 3.8 times 10 to the 33rd ergs per second. So Burago's calculated energy accumulation rate from ether is much, much smaller than the sun's current output rate.
Okay, so it's not directly powering the current luminosity second by second in that calculation.
Not in that specific calculation of accumulated gravitational energy. It seems more about the long-term buildup, the stored potential energy within the star derived from ether. But he does propose the ongoing absorption is the ultimate source. And for older, denser stars like Van Manen's star or Wolf 457, he calculates these truly astronomical total accumulated energies over their lifespans, figures like 5.37 by 10^64 and 5.90 by 5069 ergs.
Whoa, those numbers are almost meaningless. They're so huge.
They're immense. They dwarf the total energy the sun is expected to release through fusion over its entire multi-billion-year lifetime. It suggests stars, in this view, are these vast reservoirs of energy built up over cosmic time from ether.
So this really reframes E equals mc squared again, doesn't it? It's not mass converting into energy in fusion, but maybe the energy we see is released from this vast store of accumulated ether potential.
Exactly. It's about the energy potential inherent in the mass, because that mass originated from absorbed ether energy. And perhaps that potential is constantly being replenished by ongoing absorption.
That is a huge shift in perspective. If stellar energy ultimately comes from this endless ether absorption, it totally changes how long stars could potentially live, right?
Right.
It suggests this almost limitless energy supply, making stars potentially far longer lived, maybe even practically immortal compared to fusion models.
It certainly opens up that possibility within his framework, yeah.
But Burago's vision doesn't just stop at individual stars. It scales up to the entire universe, offering a radical new take on one of the absolute biggest observations in cosmology, galactic redshift.
Right. The observation that light from distant galaxies appears stretched, shifted towards the red end of the spectrum.
Yeah, and that redshift is usually the prime evidence for an expanding universe, right? Galaxies flying away from us, stretching the light waves between them, which points back to a Big Bang origin.
The standard interpretation, yes. Doppler shift due to recession, plus cosmological expansion stretching spacetime.
So how does Burago explain this absolutely fundamental observation without needing a Big Bang or an expanding universe?
This is another area where his theory just fundamentally diverges from the mainstream. The book proposes that the redshift we see from distant galaxies is not primarily due to them physically flying away from us or space itself expanding.
Okay, so what causes it then?
Instead, he argues, it's caused by the light waves themselves losing energy as they travel across unimaginable distances through the interstellar ether.
Ah, the ether is interacting with the light.
Yes. This is often called the tired light hypothesis. The idea is that the longer the light travels through the ether medium, the more tiny interactions it has, the more energy it loses. And as light loses energy, its wavelength gets longer, shifting it towards the red end of the spectrum.
So it's like if you shout across a really, really big, maybe slightly foggy field, your voice loses energy, gets fainter, maybe even sounds a bit deeper by the time it reaches the other side.
That's a pretty good analogy. Here, the light gets tired, loses energy, and appears redder simply because of its long journey through the cosmic fog of the ether.
So galaxies aren't necessarily rushing away from us in an explosion aftermath. It's just the light getting worn out on its trip. That's a truly elegant alternative. No cosmic explosion required to explain the redshift data.
It's definitely elegant in its simplicity. And what's more, Burago provides a specific formula for this Formula 25 in the book. It describes this tired light redshift as being proportional to distance. So the further away the galaxy, the redder its light appears.
Which sounds just like Hubble's law. Redshift proportional to distance.
Exactly. His formula, HISC, where H is analogous to the Hubble constant, mathematically reproduces the Hubble relationship, but without needing the universe to expand. He explicitly presents this as an alternative to the Big Bang's primal atom idea, the ominous. It allows for a steady-state universe where redshift happens naturally over distance.
Wow. Same observation, same mathematical relationship, totally different physical cause.
And it doesn't stop there. He applies the same logic to gravitational redshift. That's the phenomenon where light loses energy when it climbs out of a strong gravitational field, like from a star.
Right, predicted by Einstein too.
Yes. Burago explains this as light interacting with the ether flow around the massive star. As light travels against that inward ether current, it loses energy, changing its speed slightly relative to the ether, and its wavelength gets stretched.
So gravity affects light via the ether flow it creates.
Exactly. And here's the really interesting part. Burago derives formulas for this gravitational redshift formulas 88 and 90, and mathematically, they perfectly match Einstein's formulas derived from general relativity.
The same formula.
The same mathematical results, yes, but derived from a completely different physical foundation, ether dynamics, instead of curved space-time. It's the same math, but describing a radically different physical reality.
Okay, my head is spinning a little. If galaxies aren't actually flying apart because of some ancient explosion, then how did they form in the first place? And how do they spin the way they do? Especially spiral galaxies, they spin so fast, the outer stars seem like they should just fly off into space based on the gravity of the visible stuff alone.
The galaxy rotation problem.
Yeah, that's the mystery that led scientists to propose dark matter.
Right.
So if Burago doesn't need cosmic expansion, does he need dark matter? Or does the ether explain that too? Our next section is going to dive into how ether vortices might reshape our entire understanding of how galaxies hold together, how they spin, and maybe even how our own solar system came to be. Get ready for a cosmic twist that could potentially unravel the mystery of dark matter without ever needing it. Okay, so if the universe is filled with this constantly flowing ether, it brings up a pretty immediate, practical question. How do planets and stars just keep moving? Orbiting and spinning for billions of years without slowing down. Moving through any kind of medium, even this ether, you'd think there'd be some friction, some drag.
It's a natural question, yeah. If you're swimming through water, you feel resistance.
Exactly. So why doesn't the Earth grind to a halt in its orbit? There must be some cosmic mechanism in Burago's theory to keep everything moving so smoothly, so perpetually.
And there is. What's truly fascinating here is how Burago addresses this very point. He introduces the concept of ether vortices.
Vortices, like whirlpools.
Precisely. Imagine a whirlpool, or maybe a tornado, but scaled up to absolutely cosmic proportions, potentially surrounding stars, planets, even entire galaxies. He proposes these vortices exist around all massive rotating bodies.
Okay, so rotation is key.
Yes, and these vortices, they entrain the surrounding ether, remember that word? They essentially grab onto the nearby ether and carry it along in a swirling pattern.
Like the Earth entraining its local ether.
Exactly, but on a potentially much larger scale and driven by rotation. This entrainment means that objects within the vortex, like planets orbiting a star within its vortex, are carried along by the swirling ether itself. They move with the flow, so they experience little to no resistance relative to the medium immediately around them.
So they're basically surfing the cosmic whirlpool.
That's a great way to put it. This vortex mechanism provides a universal explanation for why we see so much stable rotational movement throughout the cosmos, from planets orbiting stars to stars orbiting galactic centers.
And these aren't just temporary eddies.
No, he describes them as incredibly stable, persistent structures. They maintain their form because the central rotating body is constantly absorbing ether, which compresses the vortex and keeps it stable, potentially extending out for vast distances. It's a fundamental, self-sustaining structure created by rotating mass interacting with the ether.
Okay, so if I'm picturing this right, the planets aren't just orbiting the sun in empty space because of gravity's pull. They're actually caught inside the sun's gigantic ether whirlpool, and that whirlpool is carrying them along, frictionless, in their orbits.
That's the essence of the model, yes. It provides a physical mechanism for stable, long-term orbits, explaining that apparent perpetual motion.
That is an incredibly elegant solution to the why don't things slow down problem. It gives a physical reason for it.
Yeah.
Okay, but then what does this vortex idea mean for something as huge and mysterious as a spiral galaxy? with those beautiful arms swirling out. They are definitely spinning, and in a very peculiar way that has puzzled astronomers.
Well, if we connect this vortex concept to the galactic scale, Burago interprets spiral galaxies as simply colossal ether vortices.
The whole galaxy is one giant vortex.
Essentially, yes. The central region, the bulge or core containing billions of stars, is proposed to rotate more or less like a solid body because it's deeply embedded in the densest part of the vortex, constantly absorbing ether.
Okay, that explains the core rotation.
Then the stars out in the spiral arms, they aren't just orbiting based on the gravity of the core alone, they are being carried along by the swirling currents of this immense galactic ether vortex. And this explains why their orbital speeds don't drop off significantly as you get further from the center. They're riding the vortex wave, so to speak.
Wait a minute. Stars rotating at speeds that don't decrease significantly with distance. Isn't that exactly the observation that led astronomers to propose the existence of dark matter in the first place?
Precisely. That's the famous galaxy rotation curve problem. The visible matter stars, gas, dust doesn't have enough gravity, according to standard physics, to hold onto those fast-moving outer stars. They should fly off into intergalactic space.
So astronomers invented dark matter, this unseen stuff providing the extra gravitational glue?
Yes, an invisible halo of matter making up supposedly most of the galaxy's mass. But Burago's model offers a direct alternative explanation for those flat rotation curves without needing any dark matter at all.
How?
It's the ether vortex itself doing the work. The dynamics of the flowing, rotating ether within the galactic vortex provide the necessary carrying force or effective gravitational influence to keep those outer stars orbiting at the observed high speeds. It's the structure of the vortex, driven by the ether, not invisible matter.
So, dark matter might just be the motion of the ether in these giant galactic whirlpools.
That's what his theory strongly suggests. It's a fundamental shift, replacing an unknown, hypothetical form of matter with the dynamic behavior of the known underlying medium, the ether.
This is truly mind-bending. It feels like the universe is less like a collection of separate objects interacting through gravity, and more like this vast, interconnected, spinning fluid system, everything influencing everything else through these ether flows and vortices.
It's a much more interconnected, fluid, dynamic view of the cosmos, yes.
Okay, but does this vortex idea scale down? Does it apply to our own backyard, our solar system? How does the ether theory explain how the solar system even formed and why the planets follow such precise, stable paths around our sun?
It absolutely extends down to the solar system scale. The book proposes, as we touched on, that planetary orbits are directly shaped and maintained by the sun's own ether vortex. It's not just a general influence. The specific characteristics of the sun's vortex, according to his calculations in section 11, determine the stability and the radii of the planetary orbits.
So the orbits are where they are because of the structure of the sun's vortex.
That's the idea. It's not just a gravitational negotiation. It's about finding stable paths within these ether currents. And as for how the solar system formed, Burago offers a really radical hypothesis.
I'm ready for it.
He suggests that our sun wasn't always like it is now. He proposes it might have once been a white dwarf star that underwent a colossal ether explosion roughly 11.5 billion years ago.
An ether explosion, not a supernova.
Not a standard supernova, no. He envisions it as some kind of instability, maybe related to ether absorption getting out of control, leading to a cataclysmic ejection of this ether-infused material. And that ejected material then cooled and coalesced to form the planets.
Whoa, so the planets are made from the sun's ancient etheric ejecta. That is a wild origin story, completely different from the standard nebular hypothesis of a collapsing gas cloud.
Very different. And then after this explosion, the sun itself evolved into its current state through billions of years of continuous, stable ether absorption, and also a gradual despinning, slowing down its rotation as it aged and expanded.
Okay, that explains the sun and planets. What about smaller things? Like, does it explain any weird anomalies we see right here?
It does claim to. For example, the theory offers an explanation for the secular acceleration of the moon.
Secular acceleration, what's that?
It's the subtle but measurable observation that the moon is gradually speeding up in its orbit around the Earth over long timescales. It's a known anomaly that's been tricky to fully explain with just classical gravity and tidal forces.
Okay, so the moon's getting faster. How does ether explain that?
Burago suggests it's a natural consequence of the Earth's own ether flow. Remember, the Earth is absorbing ether, creating its own local inflow. As the moon orbits through this subtle current, the theory suggests it receives a tiny, continuous nudge forward from this flow.
Like the ether is giving the moon a little push from behind.
Effectively, yes. And he calculates this effect, suggesting it causes the moon to shift forward in its orbit by about 18.6 meters every 100 years. A very specific, measurable value derived from the ether dynamics.
That is incredible. Explaining a tiny known anomaly like the moon's acceleration with the same core concept of ether flow, it shows how interconnected everything is supposed to be in this model.
Exactly. And the book really tries to back this up. It doesn't just present concepts. It includes detailed calculations and tables like Table 3 and Table 4, which lay out predicted planetary parameters and the sun's evolution based on the ether model. And Burago claims these calculated values match astronomical observations remarkably well.
So it's not just philosophical hand-waving. It's a quantitative model, making testable predictions that, according to the author, align with real data. That's impressive, whether you agree with the premise or not. Okay, we've seen how this ether idea attempts to explain the really big stuff, gravity, stars, galaxies, even the moon's orbit. But does it go even deeper, like all the way down to the very building blocks of matter itself? What about elementary particles, like electrons and protons? Are they also just little bits of swirling ether somehow? This feels like we're diving into the quantum realm of the theory now.
And this raises a really important question, because a fundamental theory should ideally work at all scales, right? And the answer Burago gives is yes. His theory absolutely extends down to the micro level, right into the heart of matter.
So what are elementary particles in this view?
He proposes they aren't the solid, indivisible points we sometimes imagine from textbook diagrams. Instead, he pictures them as complex, dynamic structures, essentially, tiny vortices within the ether itself.
Tiny whirlpools again, like miniature versions of the galactic ones.
Kind of. Think of them as incredibly small, incredibly persistent whirlpools or eddies in the fundamental cosmic fluid, the ether. They are constantly churning, and their internal energy, what we perceive and measure as their mass energy, is actually the kinetic energy of this chaotic ether movement within the particle vortex.
Whoa. So a particle's mass isn't just stuff, it's the energy of the ether swirling inside it, like a tiny contained hurricane of ether.
That's a fantastic analogy. A miniature hurricane. Section 14 of the book is titled Cosmic Energy, Hypothesis on the Internal Structure of Elementary Particles of Matter. And that's exactly the kind of idea it explores. It's like a tiny, swirling pocket of the cosmos locked inside every atom, constantly churning with these fundamental ether constituents.
That is incredible. So a proton isn't just a static thing made of quarks. It's this dynamic, energetic structure of swirling ether.
Yeah.
And that's what gives it its properties, its mass, its charge, perhaps. It's such a vivid image, but wow, is it different from the standard model of particle physics?
Very different. And Burago draws this really interesting parallel here to the kinetic theory of gases.
How so?
Well, in kinetic theory, the temperature and pressure of a gas are understood as arising from the average kinetic energy of its countless atoms or molecules moving randomly and colliding. They move chaotically, but the overall effect gives the gas its macroscopic properties.
Right. Heat is motion at the atomic level.
Exactly. So Burago postulates something similar for elementary particles. He suggests that fundamental ether atoms or constituents are moving randomly and chaotically inside the particle vortex, colliding perhaps without energy loss within that structure. And this internal chaotic kinetic energy is what constitutes the particle's rest mass and internal energy.
So it gives a very tangible, almost mechanical explanation for why particles have mass and energy. It grounds these fundamental properties in the actual dynamics of the underlying ether itself.
That's the goal, yes, to provide a physical mechanism rather than just abstract properties.
Okay, and this brings us inevitably to the most famous equation in history, maybe the most famous, E equals mc squared. It's basically defined modern physics for over a century. Mass and energy are interchangeable, two sides of the same cosmic coin. How does Burago's ether theory reinterpret this absolute cornerstone? Because if mass is accumulated ether, or the energy of swirling ether, that has to completely change the meaning of that equation, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And what's truly fascinating here is how Burago reimagines EMC squared. He doesn't throw out the mathematical relationship itself, the equivalence holds, but he fundamentally reinterprets its physical meaning.
Okay, how?
The book reinterprets it not as mass converting into energy, like in nuclear reactions, but rather as stating the equivalence between the energy that was stored in the ether that has been absorbed to constitute the mass of a body and the numerical value of that mass itself, multiplied by c squared.
So it's not about conversion, it's about definition. Mass is that stored ether energy, quantified.
Essentially, yes. It's about the total energy potential represented by the mass, a potential derived directly from its etheric origin. Think of mass as condensed, localized, perhaps swirling ether energy. The formulas he presents, like 95, 96, 97, and 106, are derived within this framework and are mathematically consistent with the EMC squared relationship, but the underlying physics is profoundly different. It's not turning one thing into another, it's recognizing that mass is already a form of contained ether energy.
Okay, that's not just a semantic tweak. That completely reframes how we might think about energy. Maybe it suggests new ways to tap into that cosmic energy source we talked about earlier, accessing the ether directly. Rather than just converting existing mass, it shifts the paradigm from energy conservation within a closed system towards a universe potentially being continuously replenished from this omnipresent ether source.
It certainly opens up those kinds of speculative possibilities within his framework, yeah. Imagine if you could tap into the energy inherent in the ether itself.
Exactly. The implications for future energy could be unbelievable if the universe itself is this inexhaustible well. And I bet this different view of mass has huge implications for how things move, too. Like maybe going beyond even Einstein's relativity when it comes to speed and inertia.
It absolutely does, and this is another key departure from mainstream physics. A crucial implication of Burago's theory is that the mass of a body is not actually constant.
Not constant. But we learn mass is invariant.
It's not in this model. He argues mass actually depends on the body's velocity relative to the stationary ether. This is a direct challenge to Einstein's concept of invariant rest mass.
So the faster you go through the ether, the more massive you become. Why?
It provides a different foundation for understanding inertia and dynamics. As a body moves faster through the underlying ether field, its interaction with the ether increases. It might absorb ether more rapidly, or the internal ether vortex might become more energetic, so its effective mass increases. This happens not purely because of relativistic effects related to space-time geometry, as in Einstein's theory, but because of the physical interaction with the ether medium itself.
Wow. So mass isn't intrinsic and fixed, it's dynamic, depending on your motion through the cosmos, through the ether.
Precisely. It transforms mass from a static property into a dynamic quantity, profoundly influenced by its cosmic environment and its state of motion within the fundamental ether. This whole framework really tries to offer this unified physical basis for almost everything. Light, gravity, mass, energy, particle structure, all stemming from the properties and dynamics of this single underlying substance.
Wow, okay. We have just taken a truly mind-bending deep dive into the secrets of the interstellar ether. I feel like my brain has been stretched in about 12 different directions.
It's a lot to take in, for sure.
We've explored how this single concept, this ancient idea, really, but radically reimagined the idea of an omnipresent, constantly flowing ether can potentially offer this unified physical explanation for just everything.
Pretty much the whole shooting match.
Yeah, from the nature of gravity and light to how stars get their energy, why distant galaxies look red, how spiral galaxies spin without flying apart, how our solar system might have formed, even down to the very nature of elementary particles.
It's remarkably comprehensive in its scope.
It really is. It's a journey that challenges almost every fundamental assumption we might have about the cosmos, offering this incredibly cohesive, alternative story for how it all works.
And it highlights that Burago's theory isn't just, one interesting alternative idea among many. He presents it as this meticulously developed physical theory, attempting to solve a whole raft of long-standing cosmic mysteries, all stemming from the perspective of this dynamic, flowing ether.
It's definitely a testament to the idea that there's always more to learn, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes, maybe the most profound answers might be hiding in ideas we thought were long forgotten, just waiting to be re-examined with fresh eyes, new data, new insights.
And it gives such a physical, almost mechanical basis to phenomena that we often describe in very abstract mathematical terms in modern physics.
Yeah.
It brings a different kind of intuition back into the picture.
So what does all this mean for you, listening right now?
Well, I think it means that even in science, even with widely accepted theories, there can be these equally compelling yet fundamentally different alternative ways of explaining reality. Yeah, it keeps things interesting.
It really does. It raises that exciting possibility that the book of the universe isn't fully written yet. And maybe the journey to being truly well-informed means we had to keep our minds open to every possibility, even the ones that seem to contradict everything we thought we knew. What specific concept from this deep dive into the ether really made your brain do a little flip? Was it gravity as a push, light as a shockwave, stars eating ether, galaxies as whirlpools, solving dark matter? What new connection or possibility maybe resonated most strongly with you?
It certainly makes you reconsider the fundamental nature of reality in a completely new light, doesn't it? It's a good reminder that our understanding is always evolving, and sometimes the big breakthroughs might come from directions we least expect or from looking at old ideas in a totally new way.
Indeed. Keep asking those big questions. Keep exploring those alternative possibilities, and definitely keep diving deep with us. Until next time, stay curious.